I thought the shirt fit the occasion because I'm going to be talking about one of my most favorite movies ever. Welcome to my room, by the way. Hello. Let's address the elephant in the room. It's kind of weird, I'm not gonna lie. It's not my most admirable trait, but we're going to talk about it today. Yep, you guessed it. This video is also for an assignment. So, okay guys, the point of this, me wearing this shirt, is that you would see Paul Rudd, but you can only see like his forehead. But my room is pretty cool otherwise, so I feel like that's more important. Simply put, today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite movies ever to exist is the cult classic Wet Hot American Summer. According to Google, Wet Hot American Summer
follows a group of counselors who are trying to complete their unfinished business before the day ends. The entire summer of pent-up sexual frustrations and unresolved post-traumatic stress, pending separations, and of course, the talent show, all weigh heavily on the mind and groins of counselors and campers alike.
Also, it's set in 1981. For one, I'm going to talk about how it became a cult film. Was Wet Hot American Summer, or as I refer to it in this video, Wet Hot, a comedic failure or a comedic genius? And I'm going to talk about the gravitational pull from the actors and the actresses for the audiences. And finally, how different generations view Wet Hot and how different generations view nostalgia as a general term. I don't think I even mentioned why Paul Rudd has anything to do with this. For a blind watch person who has never heard of Wet Hot American Summer, never seen Wet Hot American Summer, Paul Rudd is in it. So that's how I found Wet Hot American Summer, and that's how I became obsessed with it. Because I was obsessed with Paul Rudd. Is obsessed with Paul. For right now, I'm going to talk about cult films. That's so creepy. According to my very reliable source, Wikipedia, a cult film, or cult movie, as commonly referred to as a cult classic, is a film that has acquired a cult following. So pretty much cut and dry, duh. Okay, I get it though. Like when you think of cult classics, you don't think of Wet Hot American Summer, you think of Pulp Fiction, Fight Club, American Psycho, dumb film bro movies like that. Those movies are great, but like, let's talk about some real cinema here. Also, guys, it is 2:41 a.m. I am fighting a NyQuil right now, but we're gonna get this done. This is due on Sunday, and it's Monday. It's gonna get done. So something that is quite common in cult films is the initial bombing in the box office. Bombing in the sense like they made no money and they were supposed to make a lot. For some background, Wet Hot American Summer was released in the summer of 2001, and I think, me personally, I think it was the perfect time to release this movie. Like, no one even had an idea what a streaming service was at this point, and this is when like the rise of DVDs and like CDs and re-releases were all like super popular and like mainstream. Like in 2001 though, the initial response of the movie was terrible. All actual critics, if you want to know more about film critics, watch my last video. This really famous film critic, Roger Ebert, his review had nothing nice to say. Honestly, for justified reasons. Like everything he said was like kind of accurate. It was really bad and raunchy and skewed and the dialogue was bad. But I feel like the average person wouldn't notice that. And they just thought it was a silly little comedy. From what I can tell, the cult began as nothing but a simple little like fandom. Like the movie became like an underground hit where like it wasn't mainstream and it wasn't super like popular at the time, but like kind of just heard it through the word of mouth. There was no big advertising for this movie. It was more like a bunch of millennial college kids found it and they were like, this is funny, I'm gonna show it to my friends. And post DVD release in 2002 is when the cult officially began. At this time, the film was considered an alt comedy, which I understand, but that has so many random meanings, so it's like, that doesn't even matter at this point. Even though critics universally hated it, people still found a way to like it, which I feel like is a very noble task that many people need to do. One thing about this film and like the cast and crew that I can really appreciate is that the director David Wayne stood by his work and straight up said that they aren't the audience, referring to the critics. I think that the crew's overall support for the film reinforces the community and everything that's been built around it. Like, the actors and actresses all in it, they support the movie and they're like, yeah, this isn't for you. We had fun making it. The film will find its right people. I think that something that establishes a cult film very well, especially in like right now society, is its meme ability. That sounds so stupid, but stay with me. Memeability and referenceability is so important because that's what gets people talking about your movie. If you see a meme online about a movie, literally 5 people in the comments are gonna be like, name of movie? What's the movie? Name of movie? I would pull up examples on TikTok, but I did get banned today. Fun fact. So, yep, we're gonna leave that in the video. Nobody cares. Okay, Wet Hot literally establishes themselves as a quotable and referenceable movie because of just all the random jokes that like you would only find in Wet Hot. There's this one really iconic scene of Paul Rudd, not just saying that because it's Paul Rudd, is when he has his dishes in his hand in like the mess hall or whatever, and the head counselor asks him to put the dishes away and like, you know, be a responsible person, and he just groans and is flipping stuff and it's just like being dramatic, and it's hilarious, and there's little dialogue and it's so funny, and everybody, rewind, not everybody will know that, but it's like, if you know, you know, and when you know, and it's like, I know. Okay, there's also a super niche wrestler who embodies Paul Rudd's character and dresses up like him and has a whole theme song around it, and it's so hilarious. Like, I was watching videos online, and in lieu of this video, it just shows that this film has more of an impact than anybody even knows. Like, that it's going into such a random lane and going into the AEW, a random professional wrestling league. It's like, that's crazy. That has zero connection, but it found a way to connect. It's bizarre. The creativity throughout the characters just really establishes well with the audience, and you can see it in like Halloween costumes or however these characters are built. Like, people really resonate with it, and it is impactful to these audiences. In my opinion, why I don't think Wet Hot American Summer did as well as it could in the box office is because they didn't really have a direct audience that they were looking for. For example, there's like stoner comedies, sex comedies, and comedies about like mundane jobs or whatever, but Wet Hot American Summer didn't really have a specific genre of comedy that they were going for. I don't think Wet Hot American Summer really knew what it was, but it was original and unique. That's why it's brought audiences later. Like, there wasn't an established audience at the time, but its uniqueness stood out and stood the test of time, to be honest, and now it has audiences several years later. Was Wet Hot a comedic failure or a comedic genius? Super subjective, honestly. Me personally, I think it was hilarious. It's so funny. It's gonna miss for some people. Obviously, you can't please everyone, but pleased me. So there was this comedy sketch group that literally a majority of the cast was in, and the director and writer, David Wayne and Michael Showalter, and it was called The State. The State was a comedy sketch group that had an MTV show for like 3 seasons, and it was kind of a hit in the 90s until impended doom. Like, truly went right away. But it developed a little cult following of its own. Some of the genres of comedy that The State touched in their sketches were like surreal humor, anti-humor, and like alt comedy and like blue comedy. I want to touch on the anti-humor and surreal humor from this group, that it literally translated directly into the production of Wet Hot American Summer. And like I said before, I just don't think 2001 audiences really wanted that kind of comedy at the time. They wanted like straightforward, like hard-hitting jokes. The cult following of Wet Hot American Summer claims that the more you watch it, the more funnier it is and the more you notice. Even though the setting takes place over 30 years ago, the humor isn't like dated or unfunny, kind of obscure. It's like the obscure that will just last through generations. Like that obscurity will always be funny. Sketch groups and Wet Hot American Summer and those types of movies really changed how audiences react to comedy like that. The idea of comedy has expanded to more than just the stand-up and obvious kind of jokes, but into different versions of comedy that appeal to more people. More and more each day we see people making relatable and dry humor jokes that really hit with audiences and that really go far. And then to wrap up the comedy aspect of this movie, the idea of comedy and parodies honestly just consistently changes throughout generation, and the humor just adapts to what is happening in the real world and how audiences react to it. Now we're just going to talk about the actors and actresses that really pulled for the audiences today. Post Wet Hot American Summer theatrical release and the DVD release, most of these actors went on to star in franchises and break the mold of the characters they were meant to play. A bunch of these actors went to star in different franchises, and these franchises have their own fandoms and own audiences that circulate. Since actors and actresses have gained such a fan base, each of these people bring in a different audience, whether it be from SNL, The State, all end up at Wet Hot. Each of these actors have been in something that I can say have a fandom, whether it be like a sitcom or like a movie series or something. Each of those are different little audiences. All of these fandoms share a relatable trait that they like about this particular actor or like the plot line that leads them back to movies like Wet Hot. And that's how cult followings begin. Finally, we're going to talk about how different generations react to Wet Hot and how different generations take on the idea of nostalgia. So in my opinion, I think that there's like 3 different generations that could be like ultimately affected by this movie. So first we have the generation that lived through the 80s summer camp vibe, relies on how they grew up in that era and the relatableness of the movie. This generation is especially going to rely on nostalgia and everything that's within the plot and the environment of the film. I think the appeal for this generation to watch Wet Hot American Summer is that they lived through this experience and it's relatable humor and just the summer camp lore of the 80s. The next generation I'm kind of thinking of is pretty much the primary audience that I think Wet Hot American Summer found. Millennials that were in college at the time that this movie came out. The general audience that Wet Hot was going for at the time. And I think their nostalgia lies within where they were in their personal lives when they saw this film. I think this style of surreal and like anti-humor really resonates with this generation and what was funny at the time. There was especially something funny about that and where they were and what age they were that just makes it even better, and their coming of age almost. And then the last generation I was thinking of was obviously my generation, because here I am talking about Wet Hot American Summer. Anybody with internet access and a brain can find it. I think there still is a level of appreciation that lies within my generation and for Wet Hot American Summer. I would describe our generation as a super nostalgic bunch, and there's always people saying how they wish they were born in the wrong generation, they wish they were this. So the nostalgia kind of relies on who they wish they were, or like living vicariously through these characters, or like the people that showed them this. I think we can appreciate the summer camp ideas and what we got to experience as kids and how it kind of is relatable to that. Not saying that everybody else is really old, but we're still young enough to like really remember how camp feels, how camp looks, and how it was. And also, we kind of just wish we had Bradley Cooper and Paul Rudd as our camp counselors. And I think there's no shame in that. Okay, time to conclude this video. Some takeaways I want you to have from this video if you stuck out this long. Wet Hot American Summer is amazing. You should watch it. I hope I get a good grade on this because I love this movie so much and this came from the heart. And Paul Rudd is amazing. Also, if you see this, super awkward. I know you don't really use the internet that much. Super awkward. Big fan. not in a weird way. I should probably stop talking while I'm ahead. I hope you guys watch my next assignment video, I guess.